Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one for the next 3 hours, and we have got a lot to talk about as you go into the holiday season. Usually it is a pretty bland holiday when it comes to news. A lot of people relaxing, spending time with their family, hang out with friends, and usually it's just not a lot of news. That is not the case this Christmas season, that I can assure you. And one of the most frustrating things about all of this is what we are now seeing, and yet again, another story, a story that has caught the attention of the country because of a previously deported illegal immigrant who has now been accused of murdering a woman by setting her on fire in the subway and watching her burn to what led ultimately to her death. This is another illegal alien gotaway, previously deported by the Trump administration. He is now accused of murdering a woman in New York City subway because he was, I guess, bored and wanted to set her on fire. The 33-year-old illegal alien from Guatemala was arrested by the New York City Police Department on Sunday after being caught on the subway surveillance footage allegedly setting a woman on fire and then fanning the flames to burn her alive. Footage of the gruesome attack has circulated widely online. The New York Police Department has not yet released the identity of the woman. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, officials confirmed to Fox News' Bill Malugin that the individual is an illegal alien who is among millions of so-called quote-unquote gotaways living in the United States of America after having successfully crossed the southern border without being detected. According to ICE officials, the individual first crossed the border on June 1st, 2018 in Arizona. He was given an order of expedited removal and deported to his native Guatemala 6 days after crossing. Now, go back to 2018 and June 1st when this happened. Who was president of the United States of America? I'm going to answer it for some of you out there that may not be very good with math and years. That would be a guy by the name of Donald J. Trump. You know, the president-elect right now. Subsequently, on an unknown date at an unknown location, the individual crossed the border without being detected by Border Patrol agents and ultimately made his way to New York City, which has a strict sanctuary jurisdiction policy that vows to not cooperate with ICE agents at all. And so what happened? This individual, for whatever reason, decided it would be fun to set a woman on fire, fan the flames, and watch her be burned alive. Now, this is a problem in New York to the point where the Governor Hochul, decided to ride the New York City subway. And this is what she said as she's surrounded by police and by staff. This is not a real ride on the subway by herself with no one else around. This is a photo op where she went through the turnstile, looked at the cameras, and said this.
I'm on the subway train heading out to Clean Center. I have a lot of, not quite last minute, but I have holiday shopping to do. I've got an adorable 2-year-old granddaughter, so it's a lot more fun to shop. I can take the subway wherever we need to go. And I want all New Yorkers to feel safe, which is why we've added so many more National Guard, over 250 more people that'll make sure that your ride is as safe as it can be.
Nothing like putting a little music to We Are New York at the ny.gov website, where she put out this video with some upbeat, steppy music going, hey, don't worry. If you're like me and you're surrounded by National Guardmen and security and all the people that are videoing this, you're totally going to be probably safe and fine. But if you're a woman by yourself sitting on a train, there can be an illegal immigrant that can come up to you and set you on fire, douse you with a accelerator, and then watch you be burned alive. Now, to be also clear, it took her life, these injuries. And now, how do you combat it? You send out the New York governor and you put it to some peppy music, and apparently this is supposed to make the whole problem go away. The part that makes me the most angry about this video that was put out on social media, and by the way, I'll put it out so you guys can actually watch the video, because it actually makes me even more angry when you see her face, where it's like, hey, we're in the same place where a woman was burned alive by an illegal immigrant, but don't worry, I'm telling you you're safe, and look at me. The condescension of this woman. These two scenarios are different. She has security and National Guard around her. She has staff that's willing to protect her around her from any crazed person on the subway. It is obvious that the scenario in which she is in on that subway is nothing like the scenario of the woman that was burned alive by an illegal immigrant. She is not riding the subway the same way that you or I would ride the subway. Last time I was in New York and rode a subway, and I'm there about every 3 weeks when I'm, doing Outnumbered on Fox News Channel. And I don't ever ride the subway unless it's a special occasion. My dad's 70th birthday. He'd never been in New York City, and I asked what was on his bucket list. And he was like, I'd like to go to New York City. I'm like, you've never been? He's like, no. And I'm like, how is that even possible? How did I not know this? We're going to fix it. And we rode the subway because that's part of, bucket listing New York. If you're going to do New York, you're going to ride the subway. We were riding the subway coming back from a Yankees game when there was a deranged man that got on the train. I mean, the best way I can describe it is he was acting as if he was demon possessed, and got on the train and started screaming at two grown men to get up from their seats because he's sitting there, and started shaking his head looking like he was a wild animal. This individual was a threat to society. He was a threat to everybody on that train. Now, luckily, the two men, I think, made the right decision. They stood up and walked over the other side of the car and let this possessed individual do what he was going to do and sit down. He also started screaming and laughing like a psychopath. There was nobody there, by the way, to stop this guy. It was us against him if something went wrong. And I can tell you, as a grown man, 6'2", with my dad who works in law enforcement and three other men that were there at this end of the car, I was worried about all of our safety. Was there anybody there with a gun to protect us? No. Do we have guns? No, because you're not allowed to have them in New York. But when the governor goes on a subway train and that guy comes on that train, it's a very different scenario because she has safety around her. She has law enforcement around her. She has security around her. And that's what this is really all about. So for her to do a photo op, to me, it's like, number one, how dare you? And oh my gosh, how condescending can you possibly be? Like, how dare you sit there and go, hey, New York, here's some hip music for you. And you're going to be safe because I've made you safe. When a woman was just burned alive on the subway. Now, I didn't feel safe riding on the subway after that experience. Because I'm like, dude, I'm in close quarters with psychopaths and illegal immigrants who I don't know who they are, who are terrorizing the city, where 70% of all the crimes are committed in New York City are being done by illegal immigrants right now. That's their stats, not mine. I don't feel safe. I'm sure as hell not going to tell anybody else to get on the subway. I'm not going to tell anybody else to ride it in a group or alone because there's no way to protect yourself. If someone wants to set you on fire, they can do it. It is obvious from this video. They can do it. Who's going to stop them? It's you against them. If you can't protect yourself, and can you protect yourself from someone dousing you in some sort of gasoline, right? Can you really do that? Can you protect yourself from some sort of gasoline that's being shot at you? And then you being set on fire. And they're like, well, we've given you all these different people and all these different, there's more than 1,000 or whatever her number was of National Guardsmen. Like, that's great, but that's not enough to keep people safe in New York. If you don't believe me, look at the crime stats. Okay, like the crime stats are very clear. It is an incredibly dangerous city, and the subway has become incredibly dangerous. And so the governor comes out there and it's like, oh, yeah, I know that lady was set on fire. I get it. Like, I know that kind of shocked some of you that she was burned alive by an illegal immigrant, but we're still a sanctuary city. We're still a sanctuary state, New York. We're still welcoming to anybody illegal that's here illegally. That's what we do. That's how we roll. Like, that's the part that is, to me, just so disgusting. That's the part for me where I sit there and I'm like, are you kidding me? This woman's death, you just look at it as a PR issue. And this is the same city where you had a CEO who was assassinated by an individual, by the way, now that they're all excited about in New York City and cheering for the individual. Why do I say that? Well, let's rewind to Saturday Night Live. The leftists are continuing to cheer for the murder of that healthcare CEO as Saturday Night Live audience cheers for the assassin. During the weekend update, the Saturday Night Live audience cheered when the man's name was mentioned. Now, I'm not going to say his name. Saturday Night Live says it. I'll let you hear it, but listen to the New York City audience cheering for a man that killed a husband and a father of two, cold-blooded murder.
Luigi Mangione dropped... Yeah, definitely woo. You're wooing for justice, right? Luigi Mangione dropped his extradition fight and was flown from Pennsylvania to New York to face multiple charges. In related news, Bumble exploded.
You want to know how sick the world is right now with these lefties out there? They say the guy's name and the entire female audience starts wooing and catcalling. This is an individual on tape that you witness assassinating a husband and a man with two children. Assassinated him because he was a CEO of a healthcare company. The same left that is calling for the murdering of other CEOs of healthcare companies. And then this guy, because these lefty women think he's hot, that he's sexy, that he's attractive. And it wasn't just one woman in the audience. It was the majority of the audience, if not all of them, like, yeah, woo!
Luigi Mangione dropped... Yeah, definitely.
They're wooing for a guy they say is attractive. They're wooing for a guy that they think is hot. They're wooing for a man that's been charged with a horrific murder. Let that sink in, folks. Let that really, really, really sink in. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. I'll get your phone calls, 1-877-381-3811, 1-877-381-3811. You can also send me your comments and follow me on Instagram, Ben Ferguson Podcast. On X, Ben Ferguson Show. I'll read all your comments during the break, and you can send messages on Facebook as well. Just put in Ben Ferguson there. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by 1/4. You know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. I want to get your reaction to the governor of New York clearly being out of touch with reality, having National Guardmen around her, police around her, saying, hey, you guys come on the subway. I'm doing some last-minute shopping here. Everything's fine. I know there's a woman that got burned to death, and there's an illegal immigrant that set her on fire and then fanned the flames and watched her be burned alive. But, hey, it's really safe. Everything's fine. I'm riding the subway. Her 26-second video may be one of the most condescending videos I've ever seen by a politician, and that's saying something.
I'm on the subway train heading out to Queens Center. I have a lot of, not quite last minute, but I have holiday shopping to do. I've got an adorable 2-year-old granddaughter, so it's a lot more fun to shop. I can take the subway wherever we need to go. And I want all New Yorkers to feel safe, which is why we've added so many more National Guard, over 250 more people that'll make sure that your ride is as safe as it can be.
I mean, the music alone, it's like you're sitting there in a scenario where you're not saying, hey, we understand this horrific moment happened. You're just trying to whitewash it and act like it never happened. And you think 30 seconds or less than 30 seconds and music's going to be able to pull that off? Going to make it all better? I don't know what else to say. You're sitting there and you're saying, okay, this was so bad. We need a PR stunt. I'll ride the subway and I will say it is safe while I'm surrounded by people that none of you are going to get. When I ride the subway, they're not going to follow me around like her staff did. Like, that's not what happens. And I think everybody knows that. It's disgusting. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. And you want to know how these sickos got here? They came across a wide open southern border. That's the part of the story that no one seems to be held accountable for. They came across the southern border and they're allowed to stay here. And not only that, the New York Daily News is now being accused of lying about the subway murder victim, quote, catching fire. The far left, New York Daily News, doing the bidding of the governor of New York and all the other liberals there that are in favor of a wide open borders and being a sanctuary city and state, they actually reported that a woman died after she, quote, mysteriously caught fire on a Brooklyn subway car. The headline is a straight up lie. What does it say? Quote, woman dies after she catches fire in Brooklyn subway car. New York Police Department suspects homicide. The Daily News deleted the tweet, but we have a screenshot of it where it clearly says woman dies after she catches fire in Brooklyn subway car. She didn't catch on fire. Someone burned her to death. The police made it very clear that a suspect currently in custody is believed to have deliberately lit the sleeping woman's clothes on fire and then sat there to watch her burn alive, fanning the flames. She didn't catch fire. But if you want to know if the media will lie to you and just how biased the media is, here it is for you. The only way to catch fire is through an accident. Right? Like, she didn't catch on fire by accident. A man set her on fire to watch her burn to death. And the New York Daily News like, no, we got this. Liberals, we'll fix this. We'll change the headline to make it work for us. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark. We'll be right back.
The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by a quarter point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it can be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you could qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's driving the media mad. Mark Levin, call in with your outrage. 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, and I want to get your phone calls as we are chatting about the man who's been accused of burning a woman to death in the New York City subway, has been identified as an illegal immigrant from Guatemala who re-entered the U.S. after being deported under the Trump administration. Not only that, we're also hearing that apparently your tax dollars are paying for him to even live maybe in a hotel while he was in New York. This is a man who saw a woman sleeping on the subway and decided to set her on fire, fan the flame, and watch her literally burn to death. And what does the governor do? Oh, the governor's like, hey, here's what you need to know. Here's what's going on now. The governor's like, I got some music. I got guards around me. I have National Guardsmen around me, and I'm going to prove to you that it's fine for you to go on the subway, and the subway's safe. Did any of us get that? No. None of us get that type of special treatment. I'm sure the subway's safe when you're the governor of New York, because the governor of New York has security. I believe that she is safe on the subway, because compared to what you and I get when we're on the subway, it isn't even close to the same thing. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. I want to get your phone calls in here and get your reaction to this. If you can't get through, or you want to leave your comments on social, I'll read all of them during the break. You can tweet at me at Ben Ferguson Show. On Instagram, Ben Ferguson Podcast, and you can send me your comments there as well. Plus, on Facebook, Ben Ferguson there as well. Let's get your phone calls in here. Let's go first to Christine in Chicago, Illinois, listening on XM. Welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hello.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
Doing well. Go ahead.
Good. When I first heard this story, I'm thinking to myself, did this woman, spontaneously combust? Is that what... I mean, they were...
Well, hold on. Wait. If you listen to the New York Daily News, yes, their headline, woman dies after she catches fire in Brooklyn subway car.
Right. And okay, where I'm from, crime has gone up between 20 and 40% in the last 2 years. They've got to stop. These deaths left, and I'm sorry, I have to comment on the SNL. Those women and men probably who were making the cackling noises after they mentioned the idiot that, I'm not going to say his name. I don't know what this country has come to, but it's insane and it's disgusting, and I can't say anymore. So
let me ask you, can I ask you a question? I'm a dude, and I don't understand this, but I'm trying to understand it, and I want you to give me some insight here if you can. Explain to me why women in large groups can become obsessed with murders. We hear about this. You'll hear about men that go to jail that have been convicted of heinous crimes. And then women want to marry them and send them, erotic pictures and love letters and have relationships with them. It's insane to me. This dude, cold-blooded murderer, an assassin, kills someone, from what I understand, he'd never met, because he was in charge of a healthcare company and he was psychotic. And they're women are now fawning over him. They're they've given them nicknames like the hot assassin. I don't understand women when it comes to, I don't. And it's not one or two. You listen to that crowd. I'm going to play it again for people that missed it earlier. This is a Saturday Night Live crowd. As soon as they say the guy's name, like he's a rock star.
Luigi Mangione dropped. Yeah, definitely woo. You're wooing for justice, right? Luigi
I mean, they think this guy's like a rock star. I don't understand it. Can you explain it to me?
Well, no, I can't, because like I said, look at the Menendez brothers. They got millions of letters, hundreds of thousands, whatever. And one of them, did they get married? Women become obsessed with this because it's some kind of notoriety or something. And I don't even find that guy attractive. And even if I did, I certainly wouldn't tell anybody because I'd be embarrassed, because the guy is a psychotic criminal. I don't know. I don't find him attractive, and even if I did, like I said, I would not even say that, because I don't know. It just goes to show that as a whole, that a large part of people in our country aren't all there. The death left, that's what I call them. That's all I can say.
It is scary. And I mean that when I say that. It is really, really scary to me that there is that many people in an audience at Saturday Night Live, which you have to have some sort of connections to get into Saturday Night Live taping, and people are in New York that are cheering and catcalling for a cold-blooded murder. Like, you want to know where, like, when I talk about the moral decline in this country, what you just heard there is what scares me the most, is now we have dehumanized human life to the point now where we are celebrating murderers and normalizing assassinations of people that you don't like their opinions, whether it's a CEO or Donald Trump. You look at what's happened over the last 3 or 4 months, and for me, it is truly shocking. It is just shocking to me that we have normalized killing people and justifying it, the killing of people that you just don't like who they are, what they stand for. Oh, I don't like a CEO of a healthcare company. Okay, well, then we'll justify you assassinating them. Hey, I don't like Donald Trump or whoever the next politician is. Oh, well, we've normalized it now. Like, we've normalized the murdering of your opponent, whether it is political or anything else. We have now normalized it. Like, it is normal now. It is completely normal. And that is disgusting on a level that I never would have imagined that we would have gotten to this point. Yet, here we are. I appreciate the phone call, Christine. Good to talk to you. 1-877-381-3811. Let me go to Nancy in Philly. Welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Personally, I believe there's an epidemic of mental illness, and not the sort that we should feel empathy towards, but mental illness that is induced by the vast, huge amount of use of legal prescription psych meds and or illegal street drugs. You know, there's a big article in the Wall Street Journal recently about something called dabbing, where young people are using highly potent marijuana, which leads to depression, anxiety, and psychotic breaks. And when you look at all of the weird murder stories in the news, from the CEO killer to the assassins towards Trump, to the illegal immigrant behavior, to the 15-year-old who grabbed a gun and shot up her school, and then you find out, oh, she was in therapy. Well, what kind of psych meds was she on? This is a big problem. And in Philadelphia, which has a huge drug-induced mental illness problem with homeless people, the mayor is at least attempting to get these people off the street into some kind of treatment facility. Good luck to her, because I don't know if it'll work.
I look at just the Saturday Night Live audience, and I'm like, this is what I've been warning about. We are raising a society of women now that, you know, and this is weird, because I thought feminism was about, and I'll go back to Me Too movement for a second. I thought that was about raising the standard, right, of the actions of men. You just went to the lowest form ever in catcalling for an assassin who's been charged with the brutal murder of a man who had a family. Don't ever lecture me again about moral standards when you're sitting there and an audience of women are erupt when the guy's name and picture comes up. This is a cold-blooded murderer.
Luigi Mangione dropped. Yeah, definitely woo. You're wooing for justice, right?
Even I think that the guy there, Colin, whatever his name is, and I don't mean it and I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. I just can't remember his name. Joust, whatever his name is. Even he's taken back by this. It's like he's shocked. He's like, whoa, that. I don't think he was expecting that to be the response. And he's like, yeah, wooing for justice. I think he was actually embarrassed to the point where he's almost like, okay, how do I get out of this? I don't want to be associated with this. How do I get out of this? How do I change this? How do I make sure that this is not how we're not in advocating for this celebration of the sexy assassin as they describe it. And people woo this way. You're like, are you insane? Is this really happening? Yeah, it is. This is exactly what's happening. Because this is what they believe. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark. And if you just joined us tonight, we've got a lot to talk about, including the fact that the New York Daily News decides to put out a tweet saying a woman dies after she catches fire in the Brooklyn subway car. They've since deleted the tweet/headline. We have the screenshot. Police making it very clear. The woman didn't randomly catch fire. She was caught on fire by an illegal immigrant that wanted to watch her and did burn alive. But don't worry, right? If the media can just lie, then they can cover for the sanctuary cities. They can just cover for those sanctuary cities, and it's not a problem at all. And the governor of New York making it clear, the subways are fine to ride on. See, look at me. I'm riding on a subway. Meanwhile, she's surrounded by cameramen, staff, security, and National Guardsmen in a 26-second upbeat video. Everything's fine. That didn't really happen. A woman being caught on, being set on fire on purpose. No, that didn't happen. Look at me. I'm the governor. I'm going shopping on the subway.
I'm on the subway train heading out to Clean Center. I have a lot of, not quite last minute, but I have holiday shopping to do. I've got an adorable 2-year-old granddaughter, so it's a lot more fun to shop. I can take the subway wherever we need to go. And I want all New Yorkers to feel safe, which is why we've added so many more National Guard, over 250 more people that'll make sure that your ride is as safe as it can be.
There's your upbeat video for you, right? That the music is incredible. Everybody should just be happy. Like everything's great. Nothing is wrong. We're all living in a wonderful world. It's just all a fairy tale. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. Let me go to Mark in North New Jersey on line 6. Welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in. Hi.
Hi, Mark. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, man. How are you?
I'm great. Listen, I want to talk about how we can get Hochul out of office. Because, listen, we've seen it. She's a weak person to be running the state of New York. We've seen it. All right? But the problem is we're not putting up the proper candidate for it. Like Lee Zeldin just didn't work out right in 2022. It's just we need somebody who has like the same charisma as somebody like Bloomberg did when he first ran for mayor, or somebody who has charisma like Pataki did. We're having too many issues because it's like, look at what New York's coming. Look at what's happening in our cities. It's horrible.
But here's my question. At the end of the day, New York is still extremely liberal. How do you get a fundamentally conservative person who's going to change the way things are done to get elected there? Liberal. I mean, New York is proud of how liberal they are. Like, liberalism is just like a bastion of glory there. You can't walk around and be a hardcore conservative. I mean, hell, isn't Anthony Weiner about to run for city council again? I mean, that guy.
What I really think you need, and it sucks to say it, you do need a type of conservative who is fine with working with these Dems at some things, where it's like, because it's like you said, New York is one of the most liberal states in the nation. You need a Republican who sometimes has to put his foot down and is like, all right, well, we got to do something.
I think about the voters. The voters are so liberal there that the New York Daily News can come out with a headline that says, woman dies after she catches fire in Brooklyn subway car, to cover for the open door policy, sanctuary city policy, open border policy of the radical left, which is continuing to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on illegal immigrants staying in hotels in New York City.
It's a big issue. Listen, if we had a decent Republican governor of New York, we would take all that funding away. You know what I mean? And like you said, it's really bad at the moment. But you know what we got to do? We got to do the same thing that we did that we got Trump reelected. We got to pretty much push out as many ads as possible, showing what's wrong with our state and what's wrong with the city. We really just got to constantly throw out those ads. If we don't, we're going to have 4 more years of Hochul. I mean,
every time I think in New York that you guys have had enough, you go and elect somebody that's a hardcore lefty, and I'm like, yeah, this is the reason why you guys are going to hell in a handbasket.
It's an issue. It's a real issue. You know what? I really don't understand how we elected Hochul, even after the whole Cuomo thing, after he with inflation that was so up. I personally can't believe
it.
Dude,
by the way, I actually believe there's a 50% chance. I'm not kidding when I say this. I actually believe there's a 50% chance, a legitimate 50% chance, that your former governor who left in disgrace should somehow get back into office. I'm dead serious. I think Cuomo, there's a 50% chance that guy can come back. That's how liberal New York is. Just the reality of the situation. It sucks, but that's the truth. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. Don't forget, follow me on social media, send your comments, and grab my podcast, the Ben Ferguson Podcast. We'll be right back.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hour 2, Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. It is nice to have you with us. And if you just joined us, we have been talking about a previously deported illegal immigrant has been arrested in connection to the heinous death of a woman set on fire and burned to death on a subway train in New York City. That individual has now been charged with first and second degree murder as well as first degree arson. The individual had been deported under Trump when Trump was in office. At some point after that, he came across our wide open southern border and apparently had even lived in a shelter that you were paying for, like a hotel in New York. Now, you may ask yourself, and I'm going back to the bigger theme here tonight, and that is the Democratic Party, and I've said this several times, I've been filling in for Mark, and I'm going to say it again. The Democratic Party is dead. The Democratic Party that you used to know, that maybe you were a part of, maybe your family voted for a lot of Democrats, maybe your family was proud to say they helped get Democrats elected. That party is dead. It is now a party filled with Marxists, Socialists, and Communists, masquerading as Democrats because they know that the majority of America's population is still not ready to come to terms with the idea of having communists and socialists and Marxists that are actually truly in charge of the United States of America. Because those three things go completely against what our founding fathers wanted for this country. But what we're noticing now, because of the socialists and the Marxists and the communists and the psychopaths that are running the Democratic Party, is that we have now gotten to a point in this country where human life does not matter. Let's deal with immigration as exhibit one of me making this argument. I hope many of you will take what I'm saying and write notes and grab my podcast and share this with your family and your friends, because this is where we are in this country, and there needs to be a moment of truth and honesty. You look at the open border policy. The Democrats knew, the Marxists, the Socialists, the Communists, the Joe Bidens, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Harry Reids, the Chuck Schumers, the AOCs, they knew that policy was going to cost Americans their lives. They knew it. Now, when I say that, you can challenge me and say, all right, Ben, we'll prove it. I will. They knew that there was going to be a massive amount of human trafficking that was going to come across the southern border with an open border. They knew that terrorists or suspected terrorists or people on the terrorist watch list were going to come across that open southern border, and that could cost lives. They knew that drugs, illicit drugs, specifically drugs laced with fentanyl, were going to come across the open border as well, and that was going to cost people their lives with ODs, with accidental ODs. They knew that criminals were going to be coming across the border, and they knew the intel that you were warned about, that countries like Venezuela were going to allow out of jail people that they didn't want to deal with anymore, the worst among them. And they were going to export them to the United States of America, so they got rid of their problem, which is exactly what happened. We all, in the Democratic Party, they all knew that this was going to be a consequence, that Americans were going to die, they were going to be murdered, they were going to be raped, they were going to be killed, they were going to be tortured. They were okay with it because they needed to import prospective new citizens / new voters. And the Democratic Party said, we want to fundamentally change this country because we're not Democrats. We're masquerading as Democrats. We're Marxists, Socialists, and Communists. And who better to help us achieve that goal of being open Marxists or Socialists or Communists and bring in people that are used to Communists and Socialists and Marxism? And let's import those voters into this country, and then we're going to give them a bunch of free stuff. And we know if we give them the free stuff, then they're going to ultimately vote for us. So what has happened over the last 4 years? We have seen the dehumanization, I think that's the best way I can describe it, of life in this country at the hands of drug dealers and cartel members, at the hands of the fentanyl, at the hands of the criminals. And we have seen the dehumanizing of people to the point where now people cheer. If there is someone that you don't like, you are now justified in wanting to kill them. We really saw this hit a fever pitch when the assassination attempt on Donald Trump happened. The media even alluded to the idea, well, it's Donald Trump. I mean, you should expect that someone's going to want to kill him. That was how much of the media talked about that assassination attempt. Well, I mean, he's very controversial, therefore justifying that people would want to kill him. And then the left glorified the shooter like he was some sort of hero, and people were encouraging the violence and implying that, the only thing that made them mad about the shooter was the fact that he didn't actually kill Donald Trump. Which is also just so insane if you actually think about it. You fast forward to the healthcare CEO in New York City who was gunned down by a clear psychopath, and the socialists, Marxists, and communists were not upset about this because, like, well, the dude made a lot of money. Like, he should have known better. Like, he should have known that they were probably going to try to, well, if you make a lot of money in the healthcare sector, you deserve to die. Or at least have to watch over your back that someone might want to kill you because we believe that you are evil. These are the same people that passed Obamacare, the same people that in Washington this last week were making sure they didn't have to actually be on the exchanges. This is the Congress, right? That they got their own special health care that is better for them, but you minions out there, you still just get Obamacare. These are the same people that don't value life. And now you understand why they don't value life. And you look at this guy who killed this CEO. He is being cheered by the left. There is an obsession by the left about this individual and how attractive they think he is and how sexy he is. They call him the sexy assassin. Women are obsessed with him, which is psychotic. And even on Saturday Night Live, and I played it earlier, and if you missed it, I'm going to play it for you now because it's important that you hear it. On Saturday Night Live, when they said the guy's name, I will not say that this assassin's name, but this is how the audience, the women specifically responded after his name was said. Listen carefully to the amount of excitement when the assassin's name was said on Weekend Update on SNL.
Luigi Mangione dropped... Definitely woo. You're wooing for justice, right? Luigi Mangione dropped his extradition fight and was flown from Pennsylvania to New York to face multiple charges. In related news, Bumble exploded.
So they're literally acknowledging that people want to date this guy and they think he's the hot assassin and that this is a person who is now being glorified for killing a CEO in the healthcare industry. We also saw the posters that went up in and around New York of the other CEOs. We saw online people posting the addresses and the pictures of CEOs of other healthcare companies in black and white. And then on that page, they had Brian Thompson, the man who was murdered. And his picture was black and white. Like, yep, we took care of that one. We killed that one. That one's dead. Now, here are the ones still living. We need to go after them next. This is the dehumanizing of people in this country. Which brings me to step 3, lack of accountability for those that commit heinous crimes. And people look to leaders for leadership. Well, we now know exactly how radical the Marxist, Socialists, and Communists have become. How do we know this? Because of now what President Joe Biden has done on behalf of the worst criminals in America, those sitting on federal death row, who have now been given commutations. This coming from the White House press briefing room under the tab Statements and Releases. It reads, I've decided my career, I've dedicated, I should say, my career to reducing violent crime and ensuring a fair and effective justice system. Today, I am commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 individuals on federal death row to life sentences without the possibility of parole. This is coming from the President Joe Biden. These commutations are consistent with the moratorium my administration had imposed on federal executions in cases other than terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder. Make no mistake, I condemn these murderers, grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, and ache for all the families who have suffered unimaginable and irreparable loss. But guided by my conscience and my experience as a public defender, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, vice president, and now president, I am more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of death penalty at the federal level. In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted. The White House then put out a fact sheet. President Biden commutes sentences of 37 individuals on death row. And you sit there and you go, okay, so why? Well, the Washington Post headline put it this way. Biden commutes most federal death sentences before Trump takes office. 37 inmates will serve life without parole. 3 others involved in cases of terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder still face execution. You want to know why no one is afraid of the law anymore? You want to know why no one's afraid of accountability anymore for their actions? Because if you're attractive, or the left says you're attractive, or the left says that you are killing people they approve of you killing of them, well, then we're going to defend you. We're going to protect you. We're going to make sure that if you kill people that we don't value at a high enough level, that you can kill them, and we'll make sure that you don't die after we catch you. So here's my question I have for Joe Biden and the Marxists and Socialists. And the question is, you know the guy that just set a woman on fire in New York City and watched her be burned alive and fanned the flames and then literally watched her burn to death as she slept on the subway? She was caught on fire, set on fire, I should say, was set on fire, and the man helped accelerate her death. Is that an individual that should be protected and be given clemency if convicted of murder? Is that the person that the White House is now saying we must protect and defend? Because based on the statement from Joe Biden and the left, that is exactly what they're saying. It's exactly how they're saying it. You want to know why we have CEOs being assassinated and why we have women sleeping on subways being set on fire? Because there's no crime apparently now that the left believes crosses a line to the point where you should actually have your life taken away from you. This is how extreme they've become. Now, if you're someone they don't like politically, they think someone should be able to kill you. If you're someone they don't like politically, they believe that they should be able to come in and destroy your life, just like they did Donald Trump. They believe they should be able to lock you up. By the way, this is what Marxists and Socialists and Communists do. This is what Vladimir Putin does, right? He locks up his political opponents, and then if you still bother him, many times he just has you killed. If you're someone that gets too powerful and he doesn't like how powerful you are, someone that asks too many questions, he'll lock you up forever or have you killed or poisoned. Well, what the Democratic Party is now doing is they're now saying, hey, we like this idea. If you're an individual that we don't like, then we encourage others to take you out. We encourage others to lock you up. We encourage your life to be turned upside down. We encourage all of this so that we can continue to keep control over you. 1-877-381-3811. I want to get your reaction to all this. 1-877-381-3811. By the way, don't forget, grab my podcast, the Ben Ferguson Podcast. I do it every day. I'd love to keep up with you there. You can follow me and send your comments during the break on X, Ben Ferguson Show. On Instagram, follow me there during the break. Ben Ferguson Podcast is my name there. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, they say free, but what they really mean is see the fine print. There's no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper. You'll realize to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. That's a lot of money for a free phone, don't you think? Well, don't fall for it. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need, plus get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys, and you get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/Levin, you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. If you just joined us, chatting right now about the left, making it very clear they don't value human life anymore. They just care about power over you. And anybody that gets in their way, they're fine with that person being killed. That includes Donald Trump or any other Republican or conservative that they don't like. You go back to the message being sent from the White House, and let's really talk about Joe Biden sparing the lives of murderers who killed entire families. I knew this was coming. Senator Cruz and I actually predicted this over a year ago, that Joe Biden would do this over a year ago. We said it in our podcast because we knew, because of what he was willing to do to close Guantanamo Bay. Remember when Gitmo, they wanted to close it to the point where they were willing to make a deal, and they offered a deal to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind behind 9/11? The mastermind behind 9/11, they said, we're going to spare your life just so we can have a political victory to close down Guantanamo Bay. The guy who planned 9/11. You want to know why Joe Biden's going to grant clemency to people on federal death row like he just did? It's because he doesn't care about the people that are killed at the hands of these terrorists or psychopaths. They don't care about you. It's about time people wake up. It's the truth. More coming up.
You know, they say free, but what they really mean is see the fine print. There's no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper. You'll realize to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. That's a lot of money for a free phone, don't you think? Well, don't fall for it. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need, plus get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys, and you get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/Levin, you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Mark Levin, making conservatism great again. Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin show. Shut up, Mr. Producer. He's going to laugh at me. He's laughing at me right now. I knew you were going to do that. Let's just start that all over again. Welcome back. It's the Mark Levin show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the relaxing, vacationing Mark over the holidays. He deserves it, folks. As hard as he works on the show, he deserves a few days off. I want to get to some of your phone calls in here, 1-877-381-3811. Some of you that maybe you can't get through or you want to send your comments, do it. You can send them to me on X, at Ben Ferguson Show. And if you're on Instagram, follow me. It'll probably warn you that I'm filled with disinformation. I'm not joking. When you try to follow me, you have to put it in, at Ben Ferguson Podcast on Instagram, and it'll give you a warning because apparently I'm too dangerous for society. You may laugh. Go try it. You'll see the warning pop up. It's true. At Ben Ferguson Podcast on Instagram there. All right, let me just go back to what I was saying a moment ago, because I think this is also a very, very, very important point that needs to be made about the people that were given clemency on death row, so you understand just how little Joe Biden and the Marxists and the Socialists and the communists care about the lives of people that were killed. Joe Biden commuted the death sentences of 37 of 40 federal inmates on death row on Monday, including cold-blooded murderers who'd killed entire families and predators who had slaughtered innocent children. For example, Ricardo Sanchez Jr. and Daniel Troya had been convicted for the brutal murder of an entire family. As the Palm Beach, Florida CBS affiliate 12 News recalled, the two shot and killed a mother, father, and then executed their two young children. The murders occurred early in the morning on October the 13th of 2006, when the pair stopped the family's Jeep Cherokee along the turnpike outside of Fort Pierce. Each family member was shot and left their bodies there. They were executed. Sanchez and Troya drove off in both their Dodge Ram van and the black Jeep Cherokee. So they executed children for cars. The Palm Beach Post added at the time, in 2009, Daniel Homer Troy and Ricardo Ricky Sanchez were convicted of carjacking, resulting in the death and other felonies for their roles in the 06 deaths of Jose, his wife, and their two young sons who they executed. You want to know how young the young sons were that were defenseless, that were executed? The two young sons were ages 4 and 3. Their bodies were found riddled with bullets off the side of Florida's Turnpike in Port St. Lucie. Federal prosecutors said that their drug trafficking boss, Danny Varela, ordered the hit to wipe out a large drug debt and to steal 15 kilos of cocaine from Escobedo, who was the group's cocaine smuggler that had with him at the time. Sanchez and Troya followed the Escobedos north to the Daytona Beach area where Jose made the drug kingpin and then killed them on the turnpike, executing the 4 and 3-year-old children as well. Another death row prisoner that this President Joe Biden and the left have decided to show mercy to was a guy by the name of Thomas Sanders, who had been convicted in 2014 for kidnapping and murdering a 12-year-old girl. The FBI recalled his crimes in a press release at the time of the sentencing. Sanders met Solon Roberts, 31, the summer of 2010, when Roberts rented a storage unit at a warehouse in Las Vegas where Sanders worked. Roberts and Sanders began dating, and approximately 2 months later, Roberts agreed that she and her 12-year-old daughter, Alexis, would go on a trip with Sanders over the Labor Day weekend to a wildlife park near the Grand Canyon. As they were returning to Nevada, after 3 days of traveling, Sanders pulled off Interstate 40 in a remote location in the Arizona desert and shot the woman in the head and forced Alexis Roberts into the car, keeping her captive. So assassinated the girlfriend and then forced the child, the 12-year-old daughter, into the car, keeping her captive. Sanders then drove several days across the country before he then decided to murder the 12-year-old Alexis Roberts in a wooded area in Louisiana. Evidence at trial established that Sanders shot Alexis Roberts 4 times, cut her throat. This is a 12-year-old daughter, cut her throat and left her body in the woods. where a hunter found her body on October the 8th, 2010. At trial, the jury heard a recorded confession in which Sanders admitted killing the mother and then slaughtering the daughter. Another, and this is again who Joe Biden said, oh, no, I need to show mercy and make sure that this cold-blooded murderer who cut the throat of a 12-year-old, riddled her body with bullets, killed her mother in front of her, held her captive. No, we shouldn't kill this person. We should show mercy. Another murderer whose sentence Biden commuted was Philadelphia drug kingpin, guy by the name of Savage. The local Philadelphia NBC affiliate recalled that Savage, quote, was convicted of murdering 12 people, which include a family of 6 killed in a brutal firebombing. It added, quote, the family Savage firebombed in 2004 belonged to Eugene Coleman, his former confidant turned FBI informant. In retaliation, Savage killed Coleman's mother plus his cousin, his infant child, and 3 other children. Coleman was in prison at the time. Although Savage was also incarcerated at the time of the firebombing, he orchestrated the attack through phone calls and prison visits and communicated with other inmates through prison plumbing pipes. The only 3 federal inmates still on death row are Dylan Roof, who murdered 9 black parishioners in the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. Robert Bowers, who murdered 11 Jews in the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in 2018. And another man, one of the 2 Islamic terrorist brothers behind the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. A full list of the 40 federal inmates, now 37, formerly on death row, was put out by the White House, and he said, well, in good conscience, I just can't have these people die. These are just some of the crimes that were convicted, that were... Not only these individuals convicted, okay, of these barbaric crimes, but many of them actually admitted to doing the crimes. There's literally no room for debate. This is what they did. They've admitted it. And what does Joe Biden say? Oh, well, I got to tell you, I can't let these people die. I know they slit the throats of children and executed children, executed 2- and 3-year-olds, planned these murders from prison. I understand that, but I just can't put them to death. That's something I just can't do here. Something I'm just not able to accomplish. Like this is like, I can't put these people to death. Let me give you another example. A Venezuelan gang member, a 20-year-old dude dressed in drag, including a long wig last week to evade Aurora, Colorado cops hunting for the perps of a brutal kidnapping and torture at the Edge at Lowry Apartments. You may have heard about this. Remember when the media said, oh, no, this isn't really happening. They're not taking over apartment complexes, illegal alien gangs from, other countries. No, that's not happening. From Venezuela, no. The same illegal immigrant was wanted after he was allegedly seen in a viral video breaking into units at the same complex with armed gangsters. The dude dressed in drag, hoping that would make him where you couldn't figure out who he actually was. He's now been arrested. When you torture people and, off people, just know the Democratic Party will do everything they can to protect your life while you're killing others. They will do everything they can to spare the life of you while you're slitting the throats of children. I'm sorry if that's blunt, but that's what the criminals did who Joe Biden just said, I'm going to commute your sentence. You're not going to get the death penalty. That's who he's protecting, folks. By the way, everything that I just said, I'm going to put in my podcast. You can share it. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast and share it because this is what people need to know. These are the facts that I just gave you that people need to hear. You can also download Mark Levin, the podcast. It will be in there after the show. You can grab that as well, and you can share it, because everyone needs to actually hear who these people are, how heinous their crimes were, and who is defending them. Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, they say free, but what they really mean is see the fine print. There's no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper. You'll realize to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. That's a lot of money for a free phone, don't you think? Well, don't fall for it. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need, plus get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys, and you get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. Do this. Go to puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/LEVIN, you'll get an additional 50% off your first month. Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. I want to get to your phone calls, 1-877-381-3811. You can also send me your comments. If you're on X, at Ben Ferguson Show. And if you're on Instagram, see if you can follow me. It's actually hard to find me, at Ben Ferguson Podcast, because apparently I'm a threat to society with misinformation. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? Have you ever been marked that way? No, I'm marked that way. Somebody the other day was like, dude, like, I can't even find you. Like, you can't put in Ben Ferguson. You actually go at Ben Ferguson Podcast. And there's a warning that pops up when you try to follow me. This account's been associated with disinformation. I kid you not. Good luck finding it there. Let's get to your phone calls. 1-877-381-3811. Let me go to Rick in Charleston. Welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hi.
Hey, Ben.
How are you, sir?
You kind of stole my thunder. Good. You stole my thunder a bit when that's what I called in for, was to talk about that. This guy, the immolator that is up in New York, and under Biden, he would be, I guess, set off to be free out of this if he was, and will be prosecuted by the federals. So I guess he would fall into that if you're letting off people. Well,
and for people that are, if people that aren't listening are just tuning in, let me explain what you're referencing. So the guy that's the illegal immigrant that had been deported under Trump, let back into this country, was in apparently government housing in New York, like illegal immigrant housing. So we're paying for his housing. Who then walked up to a woman who was asleep on the subway and lit her on fire with an accelerant, and then watched her burn to death. You're absolutely right. If he's convicted and he was given the death penalty, he would have for sure been on the list of those that were just commuted their sentences that Joe Biden just put out. No doubt about it.
That's right. Biden the benevolent would let off Sebastian the emulator. That it's crazy, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. Hochul, the rest of the joke that's up there now, which they already have the National Guard deployed on the subway system, and extra now for the holidays. And this is the kind of thing going on with Biden pardoning people. It's really all about the ego. It's about he wants to go down as Biden the benevolent, when in fact it's just they're absolutely allowing communism and the destruction of the moral fabric of the country is part of it. I think also they want the new voters. They want to bring in and import more Democrat votes. There's no doubt about that part. But I think the other side of that coin is more lawlessness is welcome.
Well, I do believe that they also think that if you can import just so many extremists the way that they have done it, and you allow for so much chaos, that's their leverage. Their leverage is to get a deal done where they say, okay, hey, we'll stop the chaos coming across the southern border, but you got to give amnesty to everybody we let in. That's going to be the trade. It's we will stop it, but you got to give us what we want to stop it. And we're not going to stop it until you give us what we want. I mean, that is the game plan here. And a lot of people have been asking me the question, like, well, what is the game plan? I'm like, I truly believe this is the game plan. This is what it is. It is actually that simple.
I agree.
We don't give you safety. We don't give you security until you give us what we want, and that's amnesty. When you give that to us, then we'll tell you, fine, we'll shut down the border, and then we'll say, fine, we'll crack down on future illegal immigrants. But right now, you have to give us what we demand before we give you safety. That's called blackmail. And it goes back to my opening statement that I made earlier when I said this, they knew when they opened the border that Americans were going to die in record number. They knew that the fentanyl was going to kill a lot of innocent people that had no, had no intention of dying. Like, if you've ever known someone that's died from an accidental overdose, it is tragic on such a sad level. And I've known a couple people. I know two that had accidental ODs from fentanyl and instantly took their lives. They had no intention of taking enough drugs to be high enough to kill themselves. They took a drug they did not think was going to take their life. And if you're an addict, it really is sad, right? Like, being an addict is sad, no doubt about it. And they were addicted to prescription drugs. They got a bad prescription drug. It was a counterfeit. It was laced with fentanyl, and it killed them. And they knew this when they opened the border up. And they knew that there was going to be billions and billions and billions of dollars. They also knew, by the way, that there was going to be human trafficking and child sex trafficking and child sexual abuse that was going to come across the southern border at record numbers. That has happened. We have tens of thousands of kids that are in sex slavery right now in this country. They knew that was going to be part of the business that came across the southern border. And they don't care because they want it to get so bad that just for relief, you're willing to agree to anything. And that's what they're all about.
That's exactly right. Let it build to the point that where you'll give anything just to restore order. And remember, the media was complicit in all this too. It's hard to kind of go back now. Remember a few years ago where the border, no coverage on this. It was only the extremists that were talking about these issues. Now that it's come to full blot, it's open, and here we are looking at these are the results, and these results are just beginning, in my opinion. This is going to continue.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. I got to take a hard break. By the way, a lot of you asking the question right now on social media about the list of all those people they pardoned, that Joe Biden pardoned, and their crimes. We'll put it in the podcast. It'll be in the Mark Levin podcast. You can grab mine. Get it during the break, Ben Ferguson Podcast. I'll have that up and share it with all your family and friends. Hour 3 coming up. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Well, if you needed another reason to be thankful that you voted for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, look no further than their decision to spare the lives of some of the worst criminals on death row with federal crimes. We're talking about people that have slit the throat of children, executed a 2- and 3-year-old, riddled their bodies with bullets, someone who kidnapped a 12-year-old, killed her mother in front of the 12-year-old, and then slit the throat of the 12-year-old. I'm not being graphic. I'm actually telling you the crimes that were committed by these individuals who Joe Biden decided to commute their sentence. Now, let's also be clear here. Joe Biden, I'm not even sure knows what the hell is going on. I'm not even sure that they know what the hell is going on. He knows. I don't think he's running the country. I think we all know this. And so the question now becomes, like, who's running the country and how long has the country been run by someone that was elected by no one. From what we're now gathering, apparently the entire time he's been in cognitive decline since he got to the White House to be the president. So he has not been running the country. Now, what does Joe Biden actually think, if Joe Biden was of sound mind, about the death penalty? I can actually tell you, not because I can read Joe Biden's mind, but because I can go back and play you the tape. This is Joe Biden in the U.S. Senate, July the 22nd of 1994. At the time, he was the senior senator from Delaware. He's a Democrat. And this is what he had to say about the death penalty in 94, when clearly he was in charge of his mind.
I'm a death penalty supporter. I'm the guy that wrote this bill. Presumptuous thing to say, but I wrote this bill. My own little hands. And I added into the bill more than 50 death penalties. I support the death penalty. This president supports the death penalty.
I support the death penalty. I wrote it. The president supports the death penalty. I'm a death penalty supporter. His exact words. I'm the guy that wrote this bill. Presumptuous thing to say, but I wrote this bill, my own little hands. And I added into the bill more than 50 death penalties. I support the death penalty. The president supports death penalty. Now, that was in 1994. Who was president in 94? A guy by the name of Bill Clinton. Now, Joe Biden then was that, I want to be clear, he was on his A game. Okay, I'm not saying I like his politics, but he was clearly on his A game then. He was on his A game. He understood his A game, what he was and what he stood for, and he would tell you what he stood for, and it was very, very, very clear what he stood for. And he wrote it in there not once, but 50 times. What he was in favor of with the death penalty. What changed? Number one, I think Joe Biden's no longer in charge. Based on what we've been told, I don't think he's been in charge for a very long time. Based on what I've been told, what we've been told in the new information that's coming out, Joe Biden has had a massive cognitive decline that's been a cover-up for the last 4 years. Biden's naps, quote, took precedent over meetings with Gold Star families. This from a bombshell Wall Street Journal story. And finally, the New York Times is now coming out admitting that Biden was old and there's been major problems with Joe Biden. The biggest political scandal, I would argue, ever. More than Watergate, right? More than the Pentagon Papers. Joe Biden, this is the biggest political scandal ever, certainly in my lifetime, that we have a president of the United States of America right now that is not in charge. Joe Biden has been incapacitated the entire time he has been commander-in-chief. The New York Post article on this was even more damning. Sleepy Joe forced grieving military families to wait hours while he napped on Air Force One is the new shocking story. President Biden, the reporting says, forced the grieving relatives of Marines killed in Afghanistan to wait for hours while he napped on Air Force One, multiple family members have said to the New York Post. On August the 28th, Taliban terrorists killed 13 American soldiers and more than 170 Afghans at the Kabul International Airport at the Abbey Gate in Afghanistan. We all know about that disastrous pullout because he wanted a ceremonious moment where he says, I ended America's longest war. The attack came during the final days of the chaotic American withdrawal from the country where we were taking orders from terrorists, even though we didn't have to. Biden's reported nap took place during a dignified transfer ceremony when the President and First Lady Joe Biden were to welcome the caskets of the fallen soldiers at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. The family said the leader's decision to snooze on the tarmac instead of greet them was an insult to the memories of their loved ones. Biden made us wait an extra 3 hours to receive the bodies of our dead family members because he couldn't pull it together, is what Royce McCollum told the Daily Mail. McCollum's brother, Riley, was killed in the airport massacre. A military officer told her Biden was snoozing on the plane. The account was additionally, and again, it's amazing how this reporting comes out now, but not when he was running for re-election, right? The account was additionally confirmed by Darren Hoover, the father of Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover, and Christy Shamlin, the mother-in-law of Marine Sergeant Nicole Gee. Both soldiers were killed in the explosion at the airport in Kabul. Quote, we sat in the office for what seemed like an eternity waiting on the doddering old fool, Hoover told the Mail. The disastrous Afghan withdrawal after 20 years of war is widely viewed as a low point in Biden's term. He faced criticism from military families after being filmed checking his watch during the dignified transfer ceremony at Dover. Don't worry, the media covered for that one because they're Marxists and Socialists and Communists, and they will do whatever it takes to try to prop up liberals. White House allies later tried to insist the moment never happened of him checking his watch, even though we have video and pictures of it actually happening. A rep for the White House insisted that Napgate also is a false story, saying this to the New York Post. The claim is untrue. As President Biden said on the fourth anniversary of the tragic attack on Napgate, and in the letters he wrote to family members after meeting them in Dover, these 13 Americans and the many more that were wounded were patriots in the highest sense, and we owe them and their families a sacred debt that we will never be able to fully repay, but will never cease working to fulfill, a White House spokesman said. So that is their alibi. That is how they're covering up for this, saying, no, it didn't happen. Really? Okay. So let's go to the New York Times and their reporting this week. Of course, this is as Joe Biden's like walking out the door and they're like, all right, screw him. The New York Times in June of 2024 actually said this in their reporting, quote, some of the videos of Mr. Biden circulating during this year's campaign are clearly manipulated to make him look old and confused. Others cut out vital context to portray him in a negative light, a process sometimes known as a quote-unquote cheap fake, because it requires little expense or technological skill to create. That is what the New York Times said in June of this year when Joe Biden was still the president running for re-election. What is the New York Times writing now in December of the same year, 2024, where we are right now? Here is the new quote from the New York Times, as they're now trying to act like they're some sort of real journalists. You ready? Listen very, very carefully, because this is a big change, a huge change from what they were reporting earlier. Quote, this is the twilight of Mr. Biden's presidency, the final days, the final chapter of an epic half-century political journey that has had more than its share of twists and turns. Time is catching up with Mr. Biden. He looks a little older and a little slower with each passing day. Aides say he remains plenty sharp in the Situation Room, calling world leaders to broker a ceasefire in Lebanon or deal with the chaos of Syria's rebellion. But it is hard to imagine that he seriously thought he could do the world's most stressful job for another 4 years. Ho, ho, ho. Whoa, that's certainly a big change from June when the New York Times was putting out government propaganda on behalf of Joe Biden. So what's the Wall Street Journal saying now about all of this? Well, the Wall Street Journal says how the White House functioned with a diminished Biden in charge. Now talking about the entire 4 years were all a ruse. We were all being lied to. About the cognitive decline that was apparently massive of Joe Biden from the first day in office until the last day he will be in office. Aides kept meetings short on purpose and controlled access to the president. Top advisors acted as go-betweens, and public interactions became more and more scripted, like the fake White House they built inside of the EEOB to look like the real White House. They could control the environment and have bigger teleprompters. The Biden administration denies that Biden has declined, even though we all can now see it with our own eyes. To adapt the White House around the needs of a diminished leader, they told visitors to keep meetings focused. Interactions with senior Democratic lawmakers and some cabinet members, including powerful secretaries such as Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, were infrequent or grew less frequent. Some legislative leaders had a hard time getting the president's ear at key moments, including ahead of the U.S.'s disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. Maybe that's because the president was taking his famous naps, which had precedent over any issues, right? Like national security issues. This is who the president spent the entire time. And the entire time, the government has been telling the media to lie to you, the American people. And they did it flawlessly until now, when they can finally tell you part of the truth. 1-877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. You can send me your comments on X, Ben Ferguson Show. And make sure you grab my podcast I do every day, the Ben Ferguson Podcast. We'll be right back after this.
Mark Levin.
All right, welcome back. It is the Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. So nice to have you with us during these lead up to the holidays, as he's getting a few days of just family R&R time. Merry Christmas to you and your family, by the way. If there's anyone that deserves a few days off, it's the great one, as he kills it on this show for you guys each and every day when he's sitting here. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and we've got more to talk about. I want to get some of your phone calls, 877-381-3811. I want to go back to now how the media is reporting on the cognitive decline of Joe Biden. So they're admitting that it's significant. They're admitting that his schedule, the number one thing that takes precedent is his naps. And they're admitting that the White House protected him even from his own cabinet members. And this isn't recent. This has been happening for the entire 4 years. They're admitting that he was taking naps and making Gold Star families wait 3 hours to receive the remains of their loved ones because he was sleeping on the tarmac. Let me go back to some other quotes from this article that was written about his some of the most damning lowlights of Biden's condition. And again, this is coming from the Wall Street Journal report. Senior advisors were often put into roles that some administration officials and lawmakers thought Biden should occupy, with people such as the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, senior counselor and National Economic Council heads, and their predecessors frequently in the positions of being go-betweens to the president or for the president. Some of the most damning aspects of the report include this. Quote, the president's slide has been hard to overlook. While preparing last year for the interview with Robert Hur, the special counsel who investigated Biden's handling of classified documents, the president couldn't recall lines that his team discussed with him. At events, aides often repeated instructions to him, such as where to enter or exit a stage, that would be obvious to the average person. Biden's team tapped campaign co-chairman, a Hollywood mogul, to find a voice coach to improve the president's fading warble. Wow. So I wonder if our tax dollars are paying for that. Back to the Wall Street Journal, yet a sign that the bruising presidential schedule needed to be adjusted for Biden's advanced age had arisen early on in just the first few months of his term. So this was happening all along. Administration officials noticed that the president became tired if meetings went long and would make mistakes in those meetings. Quote, if the president was having an off day, meetings could be scrapped altogether. So we have a president in charge who was actually having off days. And the government's work would stop because he was having an off day. One such occasion, the spring of 2021. Look at the calendar, folks. We're in 2024 now, so this is the beginning of his administration. A national security official explained to another aide why a meeting needed to be rescheduled, saying, quote, he has good days and bad days, and today was a bad day, so we're going to address this tomorrow, the former aide recalled the official saying. At some events, quote, the Biden campaign printed the pre-approved questions on note cards and then gave donors the cards to read those questions. Even with all these steps, Biden made flubs, which confounded the donors who knew that Biden had the questions ahead of time. Now, let's just talk about how big this cover-up had to be to get us to this point. Number one, why did Joe Biden let a diminished Biden continue to run for a second term? I think I can answer the question. The question's pretty clear. Because they wanted to keep the money flowing into the family because they're not old yet. She's a lot younger. We all know this. And the Biden crime family, they know they've got to get every dollar they can get while abusing their power for as long as they can. They also knew they needed the protection from Joe Biden for the Biden crime family activities. That would be another reason to say, hey, just keep the man alive. Keep him propped up. Make sure he gets his naps. Cover for him. Do whatever it takes to keep the Biden crime family going, to keep the money flowing. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, an unapologetic patriot and unapologetic constitutionalist. You can reach him at 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. I want to get some of your phone calls. 1-877-381-3811 as the news is now being reported that sleepy Joe Biden forced grieving military family members to wait hours while he napped on Air Force One, apparently on the tarmac. Family members now ripping the President of the United States of America, forcing them to wait an extra 3 hours to receive the bodies of our dead family members because he couldn't pull it together, is how one family member described it to the Daily Mail. Let's go to your phone calls and see what you think about all of this. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. And again, I am not surprised by what we're hearing now because everyone's like, all right, well, now we can tell you. We can tell you we lied to you the entire time. The media was lying to you the entire time. There was a cover-up, which I would argue is bigger than Watergate or bigger than the Pentagon Papers, of a president of the United States of America in massive cognitive decline. Hell, I would ask the question right now. I don't believe that Joe Biden's actually doing these clemency and pardons. So who is deciding it? Because this guy can't know what he's actually doing. I mean, do they give him like a treat when he signs his name to a piece of paper? Like, hey, Mr. President, sign right here and we'll give you a nap, an extra hour, or we'll give you some ice cream and an ice cream cone? I'm not joking when I say this. Like, I wish I was. I wish I was being like sarcastic. But based on what we're now being told, I can't imagine he knows what he's actually doing right now. And I go back to what I said earlier. You know, Joe Biden's like saying, oh, well, everybody that's on death row, we got to make sure that they're no longer on death row. I'm sorry, we got to make sure we give them clemency. What did Joe Biden say in his own words back in 1994 about the death penalty? This is Joe Biden when he had his full mind.
I'm a death penalty supporter. I'm the guy that wrote this bill. Presumptuous thing to say, but I wrote this bill. My own little hands. And I added into the bill more than 50 death penalties. I support the death penalty. This president supports the death penalty.
That's Joe Biden in his own words in 94. What changed? Can someone explain that to me? What changed? Michael, line 4. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hello.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I know how these people operate, and I hate to be the conspiracy theorist guy, but every time we say that there's a conspiracy theory, it ends up coming to fruition. You know, the Hunter Biden laptop, Joe's cognitive decline was just an illusion. You know, this Russia hoax every time. And now I can't help but think they're putting this all out on Front Street. They're all walking in lockstep, unlike the Republicans. They're taking their marching orders and putting this out there so that they can say, maybe it's time for Kamala to step in. With everything that they've got going on, they're starting to face reality. Trump is going to be the president, and he's already making all these changes, and they're terrified. And I think what they're going to try to do is slip her in the door and then come up with an excuse to keep her in there. I don't know what it could be. Maybe the stuff going on with, Biden passing, missiles on to the Ukrainians. Maybe it's the drones, whatever litany of excuses they could come up to hold their territory.
So let me jump in here and say a couple of things. One, I have zero doubts that Donald Trump will become president January the 20th. Okay, I have zero doubts. I want to be clear about that. What I do think is it is everybody running right now as fast as they can for cover and then point the finger at everybody else when it comes to the issues of corruption around the Biden family. Like, why the hell do you think that we're learning about this cognitive decline now? The reason why we're learning about this now is it's only one reason. Because they're willing to throw him under the bus to protect themselves and say, see, look over here at what he did. We're not that bad. This is about saving themselves. Nothing else but saving themselves. Do you get what I mean? Like, that's it.
I do. I just don't trust them. I know they.
I don't trust them either. But it was such a beat down the election that there's no way that they could justify staying in office or doing what you're describing. Like, it would be pure anarchy. And I actually believe that Americans would stand up and not allow it. So that's the reason why I say there's 0% chance. I think this was such a massive blank you to the Democratic Party that it was just insurmountable for them to overcome it because people are so angry with just how bad things are right now. And I really do believe that. Like, I believe that there's no way they could come back from this. Some may disagree with me. I'd say, look, if I'm wrong on January the 20th, I'm wrong. But I don't see any scenario where I'm wrong. And that's why I'm like, let's go. Like, it's time to get in there. It's time to open up a can of whoopee. And it's time for us to do what we said we were going to do or what Donald Trump said he was going to do if we got power. And I believe Donald Trump, I believe God spared his life. I'll say that first and foremost. I believe that Donald Trump's life was truly saved by God, who said, I have a purpose still for your life and for you to be in office. And that's what I think this is honestly all about. I think it is going to be a moment where it's going to be incredible to see what happens. It is going to be incredible to see just how much we find out about the corruption within our government and how many people have been abusing their power. And we're witnessing it right now. And I think part of why we are seeing what I just described to you, a lot of it really comes down to there is genuine paranoia by people in and around Joe Biden that there is going to be hell to pay. There are going to be consequences for their actions and their abuse of power. I actually believe it comes down to that. And I appreciate the phone call. Thank you, sir. It's good to talk to you. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. Let me go to Arlene in California. Welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I also agree that, Biden has gone past the stage of making decisions. He should not be making any decisions at this point. I'm in healthcare. We are required, doctors, nurses, anyone who observes elder abuse, just like child abuse, elder abuse. If anyone does commit elder abuse, they have to be reported. Part of healthcare. So where is Biden's doctor? Why is he not reporting elder abuse? Number one. Number two, I agree that I think they are.
Let's talk about the elder abuse aspect of this first, all right? It would be very hard to make the case for elder abuse when you have 24/7 care around you and the best doctors and medical care and just help around you all the time. I mean, look at how many people it takes to cover up for his cognitive decline. He's got it better than any senior that's got cognitive decline in the country.
Right, but at the
but you get what I'm saying? That how you can't report elder abuse if the guy's got the best care in the world and people walking around holding his bag and wiping his ASS.
I understand, but we even had a report that said that Biden couldn't answer questions or remember anything.
Dude, the special prosecutor said that he couldn't bring charges against him for classified documents because no jury would find him guilty because of his massive cognitive decline.
Well, yeah, but we've been fed a lot of lines and a lot of lies. We've been told what you see, what you hear, you're not really seeing it or hearing it. We've been told we're wrong. But at the same time, the report said he couldn't remember. Yeah. That the special prosecutor didn't want to do it. Well, he didn't ask everybody else because Americans wanted it done. Just because he didn't doesn't mean Americans didn't. There's a whole portion of that. Anybody who can't remember where he is, what his name is, where he lives, what year it is, if he can't remember those things, he's not to be making any decisions.
Here's what I will say, though. I guarantee he can remember he's the big guy and he gets his cut.
Isn't that the truth?
I guarantee he's sound enough to understand what the business is, which is I'm in charge and you sell access and then I do favors. That part, I promise you, he understands.
No, I think he understands it because family is continuing to help him remember that. I don't think on his own he probably doesn't remember it. I think the family's more involved than any of us have been led to believe.
No doubt. I also say this. I think one of the reasons why you see him commuting the death sentences of the people on death row with the federal government, I really do believe that the reason why is because he's about to pardon everybody around him with his family. And not only is he going to do that, he is also going to pardon people, I think, around the Biden crime family that were involved in the business. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Of course.
And so it's actually about that. It's about, hey, I got to set the precedent for this, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Well, maybe. You're saying it's just an exercise of what he's going to do next.
Correct.
Anyway, yes.
It is precedent for what I'm going to do next. That's all this is.
Well, there again. I think the case can be made against the physician that he is not reporting by law what he's supposed to report. I don't care what statue he thinks he is or, what glory because he's the physician for the president. It doesn't matter. It's a law. The law says you have to report it. And he has to know, just like you're finding out in all the paper articles coming out now and all of that, that doctor knows he is not in his full mind. He can't make decisions. That's why they have an advocate for a person who has lost their mentation, whether it be dementia, Alzheimer's, or from an accident, whatever. You can have an advocate that will go.
And I appreciate the phone call. Thank you, ma'am. It's good to talk to you. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark Levin. You can follow me. I'd love to keep up with you on X, Ben Ferguson Show. On Instagram, Ben Ferguson Podcast. And please, during the break, follow my podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, the Ben Ferguson Podcast. I'd love to keep up with you there. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, and it is really nice to have you with us. If you just joined us, we're chatting right now about the media turning on Joe Biden, telling you, yeah, the guy's been incapacitated all along, like since the very, very, very beginning. This guy just commuted the sentence of everyone basically that's on death row with federal crimes against them. Why? Number one, I'm not sure he's actually doing it. I'm not sure, because if you listen to Joe Biden back in 1994, in 94, Joe Biden was a big proponent of the death penalty.
I'm a death penalty supporter. I'm the guy that wrote this bill. Presumptuous thing to say, but I wrote this bill. My own little hands. And I added into the bill more than 50 death penalties. I support the death penalty. This president supports the death penalty.
By the way, I'll put this video up on social so that you guys can share it. I hope you make it go viral, because I don't believe that Joe Biden's the one actually doing any of this. And based on the reporting, I don't believe that anybody in the White House believes he's actually doing this. I don't know who's pulling the strings, but Joe Biden's incapacitated, and that's what the reporting is now saying. He's been incapacitated the entire time he's been president. It's actually been getting worse and worse. I'll put the clip up there. You can follow me on X, Ben Ferguson Show, on Instagram, Ben Ferguson Podcast, and I'll put it up there, and I'll put it up in the podcast, Mark Levin Podcast, mine, Ben Ferguson Podcast, and you can share it. Because I don't believe he's actually doing any of this. Somebody else is doing it on his behalf. And that's scary as hell. But when you look at what is happening now, they're all throwing him on those. It's like, yeah, this guy's like, he's gone. He's out of his mind. He's all the reporting is saying he's totally gone. NAACP president, by the way, coming on Biden committing death sentences. We commend the president on this bold step, and we encourage him to do more. They're wanting more of these brutal murderers, who I went through that list earlier of the crimes these people committed. Slitting the throats of children, executing 2- and 3-year-olds while they sit in their car seats, kidnapping and torturing of children. These are the people that Joe Biden just commuted. And maybe it's the NAACP president who's actually running the country, because it's not Joe Biden.
In our politics lead, an early morning surprise today. President Biden ordering the commutations of 37 of the 40 people currently on federal death row, changing them to life sentences. The president moving before Donald Trump, a proponent of capital punishment, takes office. The president-elect's team calling Biden's move a, quote, abhorrent decision benefiting, quote, the worst killers in the world. Now, there are 3 men still on death row. Robert Bowers, who killed 11 people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018. Dylan Roof, for gunning down 9 people in 2015 at a historically black church in Charleston. And one of the Boston Marathon bombers, Jahar Tsarnaev. Now, despite the commutations, there are calls for more to be done. The NAACP strongly supports abolishing the death penalty. And joining me now,
strongly supports abolishing it. So maybe they're running the White House. I'm telling you, if you want to know why I don't ever trust the Democratic Party, they're the party that celebrates killing unborn babies, and they defend the worst murderers among us. I'll never vote for them, and I hope you don't either. Merry Christmas. See you back here soon.